Good Monday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock. Time for Sports4CLE. Hope you had a great weekend. Plenty of Browns to talk about. A little later in the show, Eddie McDonald from Dog Pound Daily will join us. We'll talk Browns. We begin by talking Browns. It was expected the 24th civil lawsuit against Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson filed today. Here is Sarah Barshop kind of delineating that. Now, in this allegation, there were some things that were a little bit on the different side. Last week we heard Rusty Hardin mention, the happy endings thing that we saw in the show, and that was actually put into this lawsuit. So Hardin may have had a inkling that was coming. That would have been the reason that he dealt with that on Friday, trying to get ahead of it. He backtracked after the fact. Now, Tony Busby, the attorney for the 24 civil claimants now, told ESPN on Friday Harding may have single-handedly lost his client's case because he's absolutely going to use that comment because he thinks it speaks volume on his team, and his client, Deshaun Watson, view the massage industry. Busby also went on to say, and this is from Mary Kay Cabot, that we look forward to the day when we can lay out the cases of the now 24 defendants in detail in front of a jury. With that, let's welcome in Mac Robinson. Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. You can catch him tonight, 7 to midnight. So doing the night shift. Appreciate you hopping on with us, Mac. It isn't anything new. It is a little more disturbing, and it's concerning because the patterns that you see developing.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that we can say about this entire, saga when it comes to Deshaun Watson is that as this has kind of gone on, not only the numbers but also the actions that have been alleged by the accusers have gotten, more and more grotesque when it comes to, especially this one as well. Very disturbing, like you mentioned. But again, it's just a situation that, now that the Browns have traded for him, now this is a situation that, you're going to have to deal with until these cases are resolved. And, you also have to wonder that, again, you have the looming suspension from the NFL possibly coming down, when it comes to Roger Goodell, basically making the comments of the fact that, hey, you know what, we have done this in the past, and, this is a possibility where, if new details were to come out, then at that point you could look at, another suspension possibly coming down the pipeline. So, again, once this saga kind of ends, I think that that's where you're going to be dealing with that scenario. But at the same time, I think that you're kind of looking at this situation and just thinking that, again, like you mentioned, it's very disturbing, and it has just been kind of ongoing, for over 2 years now at this point.
Yeah, and again, I get what's going on. Both of these lawyers realize it's tried in the court of public opinion, and as more and more comes out, it's tough for Deshaun Watson and his attorney to battle it. All right, Mike Florio kind of went on those subjects. The way the public is kind of getting this information and the way it's kind of going in this Deshaun Watson suit. Here's Mike Florio from NBC Sports Pro Football Talk.
I think Deshaun Watson has no choice but to admit, and I think his lawyer essentially was flagging that issue on Friday, that when it's time to try these cases, it will be acknowledged by Deshaun Watson that he did hire a stream of massage therapists, 24 who ultimately sued him, another 18 who vouched for him, hoping, expecting, anticipating, wondering if these things would become consensual sexual encounters and trying to engineer that outcome. And when Rusty Hardin says that's not illegal, that's not a violation of anyone's rights, it's not illegal, it's not a crime to do something that makes someone uncomfortable.
Right.
That speaks to
intent,
the inescapable, exactly, the pattern.
Right.
The pattern.
Right.
When you set up the massage on Instagram, are you looking for a massage?
Right. Are you really looking for that?
Or are you
part?
looking for a massage that becomes something else? And Here's the fundamental problem. It clearly wasn't okay with the vast majority of these individuals who didn't engage in the activity.
Now, Mac, while that's true, no one can read intent. That's one of the things about law. The other thing that I would say, the more that comes out, the more it looks bad for Deshaun Watson. And again, the plaintiff's attorney, Busby, is trying to get him to settle. Bottom line, put as much out there as you can, put as much pressure out in PR terms as you can, and try to get him to settle.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that when it comes to a PR standpoint, it makes sense. Like you said, this is a civil case in this situation where, again, the court of public opinion is clearly, obviously, on the side of the plaintiffs when it comes to this. And again, that's where you're kind of looking at towards all of this, is that, like you said, Busby, he's somebody who, again, they're looking towards settling at a certain point here as well. And, there were the previous talks of the fact that, the Deshaun Watson side of it and the plaintiffs had talked about previously settling all for, except for about 3, I believe the number was, that came out for it. But, looking at this in general, I think that you can clearly see what Busby and his team is trying to go ahead and do. And I think that, at a certain point, man, just looking at, Harden and especially Deshaun Watson's side of it, at a certain point, you have to hire a PR team. Again, like, I understand trying to have your obviously you have your lawyer that's going out there. Again, Busby's doing this as well. But at the same time, you have to have a PR team to try to somewhat manage this. Like, again, to get to this point and not have some kind of a team that's on this, or at least trying to spin something in your favor. And again, like I said, I understand the details of all of this, but, again, at the same time, looking at the details of all of this and consistently getting, demolished in the court of public opinion in all of this, I think is something that, if I'm Deshaun Watson, I'm looking at bringing somebody else in to try to manage this as best as you possibly can.
Yeah. All right. It's time to move on from that. So the civil cases aside, on a much lighter note, it was the Browns Foundation golf outing day, raising a bunch of money, and Deshaun Watson is out in with the rest of his teammates on the country club out there in West Side. Makes a really nice putt there, does Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Again, all the money they raise here at Browns Foundation golf outing, they've been doing it for 22 years. It goes to charity. Here's Jacoby Brissett off the tee. Again, what you would expect. Here's Kareem Hunt. One of those guys gets to golf a little bit more than the other. Yeah, it's the quarterback. But again, golf outing out in the West Side at Country Club, as they are all raising money for charity. Greg Newsome out at that event talked just about the whole relationship between Odell Beckham Jr. and Baker Mayfield, and was it a distraction last year? Here's Greg Newsome.
I think it was a little bit of a distraction, but like I said, at the end of the day, those off the field matters has nothing to do with us. Like, we have to find a way and do our job. So I don't think it really affected too much, because at the end of the day, you wouldn't be able to know that there was anything wrong within our locker room. Like, we all gelled, we all still perfectly fine with each other, so you wouldn't be able to tell from an outside perspective. We just still came in every single day, did our job, and that's what we're here to do, is play football. So
but when you say it was a distraction, what did you see in their relationship that made it a distraction?
I don't think I seen the change in their relationship. Like I said, I think if you were to come in the locker room, you would think they're best friends still. And I think they're still really good friends. Obviously, some things on the field just didn't work out. That's how life is. Everyone's had friends where they don't agree on certain things, and that doesn't, separate their friendship or anything. They just didn't click.
And, Mac, when you hear that, that's last year with the Odell and Baker situation. Now you got another locker room distraction with the whole Deshaun Watson thing.
Well, and that's where I think that, again, you have these different, tests for the locker room especially. And like you mentioned, they've already kind of gone through something, where they have to deal with, obviously, the questions constantly coming over and over and over again regarding the Odell and Baker Mayfield situation. You saw that come, obviously before, the Odell trade request, clearly afterward, and that was still ongoing, especially. but getting an understanding for, what they've kind of understood, and especially, how they handled that off the field issue. I think that's going to be interesting and definitely a valuable experience, because again, not only do you have the Deshaun Watson, scandal that you're still dealing with, but you also still have the Baker Mayfield situation still looming, still on the roster, could, be with the team during training camp, who knows? But, again, I think that it's a situation where, these guys can learn from experience, whether it be good or bad, on the field and off the field. So, it's a situation where they can go ahead and possibly take some previous experience and put that towards this season, and especially going into this year where there's a lot of questions and a lot of storylines.
Yeah, and HBO's Hard Knocks probably looked at the Browns and said, man, there's too many storylines. We can't handle that in one season. Mac Robinson and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we mentioned the whole Baker Mayfield situation. We'll dive into that. Plus, some news about Odell Beckham Jr. and a possible return. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. Mentioned earlier Browns golf outing out on the west side. This comes from that. So there was media availability for Kevin Stefanski. Scott Petrek, one of the first to tweet this out. Kevin Stefanski would not discuss the plan for Baker Mayfield and mandatory minicamp. The team could, in fact, excuse him. Jimmy Garoppolo was excused from the 49ers minicamp. Now, he's rehabbing an injury, but similar situations. Along those lines, Teddy Bruschi from ESPN's Get Up on what a veteran in that locker room might be thinking about the Browns quarterback situation.
The big thing we're talking about here is that we don't know is, how long is Deshaun Watson going to be suspended? And first, you need that information, okay? If the NFL comes with 8 games, it's like, whoa, we got to figure something out, because when Deshaun comes back, this roster with Deshaun, we're good. We can make a push. So if it's 8 games, we need a way to win all of those 8 games. And if I'm a veteran in the locker room, I'm thinking, yeah, if Baker can get over his feelings and be mature about it, come on in here and you can work it out where you get him in here. He can help us win games, but that's what it's all about. It's about winning football games here, and it's about business. So a lot of times you just got to put personal feelings aside. They can handle this, because all the players know we're just in limbo right now, waiting for Deshaun, waiting for a decision on Deshaun. How many games is it going to be? Once you find out how many games, it's okay, who's going to give us the best chance? Because there are what ifs. What if Jacoby struggles? What if Jacoby goes down? Okay, we're going with Dobbs? So what team in the entire league would go into a quarterback situation with, if say it's 8 games, with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, a veteran at quarterback, and then a player that's only thrown 17 career passes?
Mac Robinson, that's a really good question. Just your thoughts on it. I mean, he lays it out pretty well.
He does, but I would disagree with him here. And I would say this. When it comes to the Cleveland Browns and the way that they've structured their quarterback rooms in the past, what they do is they structure the quarterback room so that they don't have to really change the offense all that much when it comes to the skill sets and what they succeed with. So you look at Deshaun Watson, obviously somebody who plays very well with the play action, one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, period, when it comes to talent. But you look at somebody like Jacoby Brissett. He's somebody who can, operate in the short term. He can do what you need him to do. He's not going to be that guy who's going to start the entire season for you. But again, he can run a similar type of offense surrounding the play action. You can lean on the run game, similar to what you did with Baker Mayfield. But again, somebody who can operate in a similar type of offense as Deshaun Watson. I'm not saying that he's the same, but what I'm saying is that he can go ahead and give you something similar in a much lesser package that you don't have to completely change the offense. Baker, I think, is a different type of skill set, and especially, needs a different type of offense when it comes to running that team. So because of that, last year you saw Baker as a starting quarterback, Case Keenum as your number 2, with Nick Mullins as number 3. Obviously, there's more starting experience in that case, but again, I think that you're going based on those 3. That's the reason why after you saw them sign Jacoby Brissett, you immediately saw them trade off of Case Keenum. Then very shortly after, you saw them sign Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs, with 17 career passes, isn't really going to be added to another NFL roster currently, which means that he's probably going to end up on your practice squad. So he's somebody that you can keep in the camp, you can keep with the team, and that can know the offense. So it's a similar offense with all 3. I just don't think that when it comes to Baker Mayfield especially, that it makes sense to keep him around. And not to mention, too, again, Greg Newsome mentioned it last time. There was a distraction with him in the locker room last season. So I don't think that Andrew Berry would knowingly bring him around and say, you know what, we just found out that Deshaun Watson suspended 8 games. All of a sudden, now we're scrambling. So I think that Andrew Berry already had that in place and in his mind where, look, we're comfortable with going after this and especially doing this with these guys, with the guys that we have behind Deshaun Watson in that case.
I agree with you at the line of thinking. Let me ask you this. What if the NFL comes out and says something crazy like an entire season? Are you comfortable with Jacoby Brissett as your starting quarterback for an entire season with a team that you think can go deep into the playoffs with this roster?
No. I'll be honest with you, no. And I understand the line of thinking. And, that's why, at least for me, I think that Jacoby Brissett is somebody who, look, I'll feel comfortable with him going about 6, maybe 8. 8's pushing it for me. We're okay, you know what? At that point, we're ready for Deshaun to get back. But if it's a full season, then at that point, I'm not really sure where you go. Because, again, I think that Baker, in that locker room, I think that's already a toxic enough environment to where I don't think that the locker room will really respond well to having him back, period. So that's where I think that, again, you have to balance that. Again, I understand that he's a talented quarterback. But, again, when it comes to the personality, if that personality isn't meshing with that roster, then at that point, are you doing yourself a disservice by, keeping him in there and having the rest of that locker room having to deal with that week in and week out?
Yeah, I understand completely where you're going. That would be the roster version of the scramble drill if you find out he's gone for an entire season. All right, this is kind of interesting. It's been making the rounds. Pro Football Focus tweet is that Odell Beckham Jr., Browns have had internal discussions about bringing him back. Mac, those of us who lived it, and I got nothing against Odell Beckham Jr., I don't think he wanted to be here the first time. Now, is that different because of the quarterback situation? I don't know, but I would have I'd be surprised if they bring Odell Beckham Jr. back.
Yeah, and especially like I mentioned, Greg Newsome said it was a distraction last year. And I know that, based on all accounts from his teammates, Odell's a great teammate. But again, just for whatever reason, it didn't work out in Cleveland. And I'll be honest, I would be surprised as well if he does come back. But again, if he does, then, I think it'd be an interesting wrinkle with Deshaun Watson. I just don't think that it's likely. Again, because of the injury, coming back from that ACL tear, how long he would be out. I just don't know if it's really that good of a fit in that case to bring him onto the roster again and kind of rehash all of that stuff that came up last year.
Along those lines, young wide receiving core behind Amari Cooper. What are your thoughts behind, bringing a veteran in, letting these young guys see if somebody can step up and do what's needed?
Honestly, and I've thought about this too, between, the wide receivers on the market, whether it be, Will Fuller, who has that top end speed, you have Julio Jones, who's obviously been one of the top receivers in the game previously. And then you also have somebody like, T.Y. Hilton, who's a respected veteran. Honestly, I would rather, when it comes to the regular season roster, I'd rather go ahead and give that spot to somebody like an Isaiah Weston. Isaiah Weston is somebody who, has that skill set. He's 6'3", weighed in about 215 pounds, ran a 4.42 40-inch vertical leap. Again, has the athleticism that you want. And on top of that, in each of his seasons at Northern Iowa, he averaged over 20 yards per catch in each year with Northern Iowa at that point. So the fact that they were able to bring him in as an undrafted free agent, I think that also helps balance when it comes to some of the salary cap issues as well. Obviously I know that the Browns have a lot of space, but I do think that, again, when in terms of spending at other positions, maybe you can afford to spend more at a defensive tackle spot and bring in maybe another veteran like an Eddie Goldman at that point into that position room. But at that point, maybe you bring in somebody like Julio for training camp, similar to what happened in 2014 when they brought in Nate Burleson. So, you can go ahead and have that guy be that veteran leader for some of these undrafted guys. And maybe, maybe Julio Jones can teach Isaiah Weston heading into the season at that point. But I think that, the deep threats, I think that you're looking at Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think he can be that guy. So I don't think that necessarily Will Fuller makes a ton of sense other than the previous relationship with Watson. But then at that point, again, I mentioned Julio. I'm not really sure how much he has left in the tank. And then you also look at, T.Y. Hilton, who's been declining over the last few years. I'd rather go ahead and keep around somebody cost-controlled and looking at somebody younger with a higher ceiling like somebody like an Isaiah Weston at this point in his career.
Mac Robinson and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about a trade idea. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with 92.3 The Fan's Mac Robinson. Mac will be hosting on The Fan tonight, 7 until noon, 92.3 The Fan. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about a trade idea.
Yes, hi, this is Cassius calling again. I am the quintessential Cleveland Browns fan. Now, I'm calling about a whole lot of rumors I'm hearing about the Browns possibly trading Kareem Hunt now that they have re-signed Ernest Johnson and they have so many other running backs. Okay, so tell me what you think about this. I think if Deshaun Watson is going to play most of the fourth season, meaning the Browns truly have Super Bowl aspirations, then you keep Kareem Hunt without a doubt. You go for it all. Now, if Deshaun Watson isn't going to play a large part of the season, and we realistically do not have Super Bowl hope, then you trade Kareem Hunt only because you're going to lose him next year anyway. So then you trade something for him, but you keep him if you're going for the Super Bowl this year, and you take that loss next year by not getting anything for him. Second part of this question is, what do you think about the Browns including Kareem Hunt in a trade to get rid of Baker Mayfield and maybe just bring back a draft choice or something like that? Perhaps a team with a quarterback and a running back. Let me know what you think about that. All right, thank you, and I love the show. Go Cleveland Browns, Dawg Pound.
As always, we appreciate the voicemails, especially when there's barking involved. You know, Mac, when I think of this, and I get where he's going, I don't think I'd trade Kareem Hunt. And the reason is the roster around Deshaun Watson is really good. If you don't have Deshaun Watson in, it's got to be Jacoby Brissett. You're going to need to run the ball. You're going to need to run the ball, play really good defense, and make sure Jacoby Brissett takes care of the football, doesn't turn it over if you want to win.
Yeah, and that's where it becomes a situation in my mind where, you know, maybe it's a trade deadline situation where, again, you evaluate the roster midway through the season. I know over the last few years we've seen a lot more action at the trade deadline where a lot of players have kind of moved around lately. So I think that looking at specifically a Kareem Hunt type of deal, I wouldn't necessarily be a large fan of that one for sure, obviously because of how well he plays, but also because of the fact that he helps kind of manage the rest of that running back room. And I think that, again, for an offense where, whether it be with Deshaun Watson or whether it be with, Jacoby Brissett or, God forbid, Josh Dobbs, knock on wood. But, again, I look at this as a situation where, you want these talented skill players all around. At the same time, I do recognize the fact that, again, you have Dearness Johnson, who is going to be cheaper for this season. You also just drafted Jerome Ford, who, again, a lot of, draft evaluators would, compare Jerome Ford to, a light version of Kareem Hunt. And so, looking at this and especially looking at the running back room, I do see a path where they go ahead and trade him. But I also don't necessarily think that it's likely, especially given the fact that, look, outside of Cleveland, obviously we understand and we've seen, since obviously the Kareem Hunt incident in the past as well, since then he has done much better off the field. But at the same time, again, for other teams, I've talked to, other reporters and, other NFL teams about it as well. But again, I've heard them basically say that that's still a factor in trading for him at this point. So, that might lower down that value a little bit. So it's not going to be quite as high anyway. So even if you do trade off him, you might think that the Browns got, completely screwed in a deal anyway. So, I wouldn't necessarily be as big of a fan when it comes to a Kareem Hunt deal in the first place.
The other thing I would say is Hunt and Chubb kind of take the load off of each other to try to extend each other's career, really.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Look at what happened in Dallas. Again, especially we've seen, Ezekiel Elliott basically be run into the ground because why? Because Jerry Jones paid him $90 million and, Jerry Jones gets what he wants, damn it. So, seeing how that plays out, especially, Tony Pollard is the better running back in that room, especially last year. He averaged, 6.2 yards per touch, whereas Ezekiel Elliott was only down to 4.4 yards per touch. Meanwhile, in the Cleveland Browns backfield, only one running back was over 225 touches, and that was Nick Chubb by 20. And the rest of them, you had Dearness Johnson that was around 119. And because of the missed games, you had Kareem Hunt down to 100. So because of that, you have a nice balance between all of the running backs back there. You also add in Jerome Ford, who, again, was selected in round 5. It's not one of the later picks. So I think that he's somebody who the Browns have an interest in, developing and, getting him some touches. So at that point, that opens up some spaces for these guys to not only manage to, get these touches and stay loose, fresh, and aggressive, but at the same time, it also extends their career because, previously, I know that we've seen, the shelf life of running backs be very, very short, but especially if you're balancing it out and you're lowering those touch numbers by year, that extends those careers so that you're not looking at 30, you're possibly looking at 33. So all of a sudden then it extends the careers and extends the shelf lives of all of those running backs at that point.
And you bring up Ford and you look at Martin Emerson. those aren't positions that you expected the Browns to take in the draft. What does that say about where this kind of franchise is in its building under Andrew Berry in this front office?
Well, Dave, you look at the talent that they have in those rooms specifically. Like you mentioned, the running back room, you have, Nick Chubb, you have Kareem Hunt, Dearness Johnston. But again, now you have somebody who's under contract for the long term, doesn't necessarily have to get that production and that play time early, and can actually develop at that position, get some extra reps underneath them. Similar to what happened with Martin Emerson, again, first pick for the Browns in the third round that they had of 3. And looking at Martin Emerson, Joe Woods talked about it. He said that he's long, he's aggressive, and he does what they want him to do in press coverage specifically. So, looking at what he does, he doesn't have to play early on. Why is that important? Because Greg Newsome now can slide into the slot role, and you have Greedy Williams, who, again, played up to that starting spot on the outside last year because he performed in the top 32 of Pro Football Focus when it comes to all cornerbacks, period. Now, Greedy Williams, his contract is coming up after this season, and somebody who is very similar in grading was Travarius Ward, who ended up going for 3 years and $40 million. Browns aren't going to really be able to afford that because they're an ascending team at this point. So with that being said, now you look at somebody like Martin Emerson, who doesn't have to play year one, take a year of development. Now all of a sudden he has the size, he has the aggressiveness, and he has the athletic ability that you want on the outside at that point. And you can still have Greg Newsome with the versatility inside and outside, and you have a long-term plan at the position with both of those guys and Denzel Ward locked up long-term.
Yeah, for a long time, fans were wondering why the Browns couldn't develop young players. Part of it was that they were changing the philosophy and the scheme. The other part of it was they were throwing them in there and throwing them into the fire and didn't really allow them to develop. Now they're able to draft and kind of allow to develop.
Yeah, and that's where, I know the adage for the Rams is bleep them picks, but, at the same time, look at what the Rams have done. Over the last 6 years, they have not had a first-round selection. Has that limited them in their draft picks? No, they've actually, I average it out, they average just under 9 picks per draft. So what does that mean? That means that they go ahead and they constantly are churning the back end of the roster and trying to develop some of these guys that, may or may not make an impact. They don't have to make an impact immediately because of the core talent that they have on the roster. But they have some of those veterans that might become a little bit expensive, similar to what happened with John Johnson, who came to Cleveland last season. He was drafted in the third round in 2017, same year as Cooper Kupp, in that same round as well. So looking at that scenario, again, you have to keep in mind, you have a lot of these draft picks. Just because you're not selecting early doesn't mean you can't have impact players. So that's why, again, the Browns, and to take an adage from Paul DePodesta, just need to keep on taking more bites at the apple to try to churn the back of that roster, churn the depth at that point, and be able to sustain the success that they're able to have.
Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan and I are going to step aside, take one more time out, other side of the break. We'll flip the script. We'll head to the defensive side of the ball and head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason again. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, partners in education, where stars shine. Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan and I continue talking Browns. We're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Browns' upcoming season and their defense.
Hi, this is Thad from Youngstown. I was calling to say I think this may be Cleveland's best defense ever. I have a feeling we're going to be ranked top 5 this year. Your thoughts? Thanks for taking my call. Love the show.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails, and we're going to knock on wood there, Mac, because on paper, I'm with you. It looks like this could be a really good defense.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I'm excited about is because, Dave, we talked about it last year plenty of times where, the defense looks great, but at the same time, there's so many new starters that you're not really sure how long it's going to take to gel. Now, you have 7 starters that are returning compared to the 9 new starters that you had last year. So now at this point, again, you only have to worry about a few guys that are coming in, and even still, you have other guys that are stepping up in the depth chart as well. So looking at how this defense is going to be playing this year, I think that you have guys that are familiar with each other, that they know where they need to play, where they want to play, and where their strengths are, especially. And so, looking at all of that being said, I do think that this Browns defense can really come together early on. And I do think that you can see them definitely, I would say definitely in the top 10, possibly top 5. But again, there's a lot of great teams that are out there. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see where they fall. But I do think that they can be up there. Yeah. And again, they got to go out on the field and do it on Sunday afternoon. Defense is working hard to build some camaraderie and some team chemistry. Myles Garrett had the guys in Miami over the weekend. Little yoga for the guys. And you see a little twist to it. Of course, when you talk about Myles Garrett, you're going to talk about some weightlifting. That is an insane amount of weight that he is making look light. He's thrown that up like those are like plastic weights, and those are real weights. But again, the whole trip to Miami thing, offense went to Bahamas, they go to Miami. They're trying to get that chemistry that's needed. Yeah, and I think that, like I mentioned, just finding out, other teammates' personalities, and I think that goes a long way, especially. But, you also, see how the teams are kind of coming together, both sides of the ball. I want to see what they do when they come together as a team entirely. Again, I think that was one of the big criticisms last year, from somebody like John Johnson, where, again, you saw the offense be with the offense, defense be with the defense, and you didn't really see much, cross-pollination in that case, where you didn't see as much kind of playing together or hanging out together, off the field. So, I'm curious to see how that kind of comes together as well. That's going to be the next step in my mind. And, again, when it comes to the offseason, I love seeing all the workout videos. I think it's hilarious to see some of these guys kind of come together when it comes to that. But, especially seeing these guys go down to South Beach, work out together, get an understanding and get a feel for each other, I think it makes a lot of sense, and I'm excited for it. So one of the areas that figures to be a strength is that defensive backfield. So Pro Football Focus ranks the outside cornerbacks. They did it in tiers. So Tier 1, the elite tier, is Jalen Ramsey, Jair Alexander from the Packers, and A.J. Farrell from the Falcons. Tier 2 is on the cusp. And at number 10, they have Denzel Ward of the Browns. And I'm guessing that's because he hasn't been healthy, hasn't done it for as long. Tier 5, up-and-comers, they say Greg Newsome at 27. Again, those are outside cornerback rankings. Newsome may move inside. But the bottom line is you got 2 of the top guys in the league, and I think they're ranked a little bit lower. I thought Greg Newsome was fantastic for a rookie, and if you're not telling me Denzel Ward wasn't one of the best cornerbacks in the league last year, you weren't watching the Browns enough. Right, exactly. And that's the thing, is that I think that partly comes from the record a little bit. You have that mixed in. I know that they obviously had their statistics and everything like that, but again, Denzel Ward was somebody who, again, I would say is top 5 cornerback in the NFL right now. I think that he's definitely up there, clearly being paid like it, but at the same time, I think that he's somebody who, deserves to be higher than 10 at that point. Greg Newsome, like you mentioned, again, I think was one of, if not the, with Denver.
Yeah.
As well. And so, getting a chance to see him, I think that was somebody who was playing very well. But Greg Newsome was somebody who showed he can do it both inside and outside. Same thing with Denzel Ward as well. So I think that it's interesting that you have both guys with the versatility when it comes to, on the defensive side, both playing inside and outside. Greg Newsome could play on the inside this year with Troy Hill heading to Los Angeles. So I think that it's interesting to see where these guys are ranked at and where you could see Greedy Williams after this season.
Well, and you mentioned Troy Hill being traded, and this will explain why. Pro Football Focus grades from the last 3 years, and he lost about half of his grade last season. Went from an 89.2 to a 50.2, and much lower than even in 2019 when he was a 72.5. So Troy Hill did not grade out very well on that inside corner.
No, he did not. Dave, that's what we call a failing grade. So at that point, Troy Hill, again, the fact that you're able to ship him off, didn't have to worry about paying him. Again, he goes over to the Rams, a defense that knows him, knows what he tries to do, and again, just didn't really fit in Cleveland. So that's perfectly fine. And the fact that the Browns got a draft pick back for him, I think was huge. And on top of that, being able to move somebody like Greg Newsome, who's played both on the inside and outside, I think that he's somebody who is interesting enough where again has that skill set to have the speed and the size that I think that he can really thrive in that slot corner role.
Mac Robinson, appreciate you taking some time. Make sure you listen to Mac. He will be on the air 7 to midnight, 92.3 The Fan tonight, picking up that shift. Appreciate you hopping on with us before you're doing that night shift. Thanks very much, Mac.
Of course, Dave. Always appreciate the time.
All right, Mac Robinson, make sure you listen to him 7 to midnight, 92.3 The Fan tonight. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Eddie McDonald from Dog Pound Daily joins us. We'll hear more from Teddy Bruschi on the Baker Mayfield situation. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's listen to Teddy Bruschi from ESPN's Get Up. His thoughts that the Browns waiting to make a decision on what to do with Baker Mayfield may be the best thing.
Are we really thinking about going into a season possibly without Deshaun Watson to upwards of 6 to 8 games with Jacoby Brissett and a quarterback that's only thrown 17 passes in his career? Are we thinking about that? Because when Deshaun comes back, okay, this is, in my opinion, a roster that can do some special things. So do you want to be, 2-6? Do you want to be, 3-5? Or with a quarterback, veteran presence with Baker and Jacoby, and you're maybe 4-4, 5-3, 6-2, and now Deshaun's there. It's about putting all these feelings aside and doing what's best to win championships. And if Stefanski can get it worked out, if the Browns organization can get it worked out, the reason they signed Deshaun is because they're desperate. They're very desperate. And so with Deshaun, every time he's there, every year he's there, it should be taken advantage of. Why can't you just do that with Baker and get it right? Give us what you got, Baker. We know this isn't going to work out, okay? We know you're out of here. You know you're out of here, man. But show the league you can still play. We got to pay you money anyway. And we don't want to pay you if you're going somewhere else. Listen. Let's try to get these games while Deshaun's out. You show it. You do what's best for you. And then you go on and continue your career somewhere else.
Let's bring in Eddie McDonald from Dog Pound Daily. Eddie, the thought nationally is that Baker can come back and potentially play. The thought locally seems to be that isn't going to work out. Where do you fall on that?
I'm going with the latter on that one. I don't think there's any chance that Baker Mayfield steps foot in Berea at the training facility, practice facility, or in First Energy Stadium this year, unless he is coming as a visitor. I get what Teddy's saying. You want to try and maximize what you have on your roster if and when Deshaun is out for however many games that is. But we've talked about this on this show, and a lot of other people have talked about on a lot of other shows that I listen to. They signed Brissett for a reason. He's not going to be one to need to start for hopefully not the whole season. He might. We'll see. But he's serviceable enough, especially with this offensive line and this running game and the defense you guys were just talking about earlier that has the potential to be a top 5, top 10 defense in this league this year. I get what Teddy's saying, and I respect what he's saying. But at the same time, I don't think anything in Baker Mayfield or in the Browns want anything to do with each other. So he will go somewhere else, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. He can start his career over. I'll root for him, to have success, but it just will not be in Cleveland.
All right, let me put this to you, and I asked Mac this same question. Does your line of thinking with Baker change if Deshaun Watson is suspended for the entire season? Take it as a worst-case scenario. Say Roger Goodell really drops, the hammer and says you're out for the entire year. It would be similar to what the 49ers did with Jimmy Garoppolo. They drafted Trey Lance, 3rd overall, and he sat and watched Jimmy Garoppolo play, and Garoppolo likely thought it was a one-year deal. If Watson is done for the year, is there any way you think it's Baker Mayfield or no?
Now, that changes things slightly. I would give that I'd say about 15 to 20% chance. I don't even know if I'm that high on it, about 15, closer to 15 range. Because we do know what Baker can do. He did a lot of good in Cleveland. He also did a lot of bad. But that is the quarterback conundrum we've been in for most of my life. So, I feel that, if he is, maybe if he is, say they come out this week or next and say, hey, Deshaun's out for the year. I don't know what the appeal process is for that. I don't know if he can appeal that and get it lowered to any game. But if it is, you would have to consider it. But at the same time, I think they know what they have in Brissett and what he can do, and that's why they got him, because he's a similar style player of Watson, not anywhere close to the caliber of player, but a similar style of player where he can use his legs if he needs to, and he can make some throws. But I'd say about 15% chance if Watson within the next 2 weeks is done for the season already. But that's also the risk the Browns were willing to take. And while everyone thinks they're in win-now mode, a lot of their core players are signed for the next few years, including Watson with that mega contract. So I guess it'd be like all right, well, we're going to just have to eat this year and hope for the best for the next 4. But I'll say 15% chance that Baker Mayfield is the quarterback for the Browns if Watson is gone for the year.
Understood. All right. I know you wrote an article about this. Do you think Odell Beckham Jr. could be coming back to the Browns? We've heard they've had discussions internally. It's been reported several places. Take me through your article and your thoughts on Odell potentially coming back.
So the discussions part is funny because that came out within the past day or two. And when I wrote this article, I wrote it because, what had happened was Myles Garrett had posted on Instagram pictures of OTAs. It said, "Come home, the fellas miss you." And I'm assuming that is talking about him, because he was not at the first week of OTAs, was there for the second week, and then he's finally there. He's, with the team. He looks like he's having a good time. Looks like he's in incredible shape, even better shape than he's been before, which is crazy. And then Odell underneath and essentially said, "Who you talking to?" Some slang and some emojis. And Garrett, said, "It's time," with the phone emoji. And then now we hear that there's been internal discussions about bringing Odell back. And a lot of people, and some people commented on the article, and some people on social media were interacting with me and saying that, "Oh, we don't want him back. He's a cancer to the team. He's this, he's that." By all accounts, not one player has felt that, or if they have not said that. Everyone loved him. Even when he got his wish and got off the team last year, everyone was showing him love. That wasn't the same for Baker Mayfield. No one has come to his defense. I mean, I know Nick Chubb said that he's still one of his best friends, and a couple of the linemen said he's tough as nails, which he is. But it's very telling when a locker room says, "Hey, we want this guy, and we want him in here. He's a great teammate." JOK and Greg Newsome on the Varsity House podcast last week, I think it dropped last week, they said that both are great teammates, Baker and Odell. But with Odell, Greg Newsome called him the best teammate he's had, and that's saying something. I know he's played 4 years at college, 4 years, I'm sure 4 years in high school. But to say that Odell's the best teammate he's had, that's saying something. That's a defensive guy. That's not even a receiver hyping him up. That's a defensive guy.
Yeah, so it will be interesting. And again, you're trying to find guys that can help you win. This is from CBSSports.com. AFC North win totals. It's kind of interesting. So the Browns, Bengals, and Ravens are all 9.5 as the win total. You see the over/under. Browns are right between the Bengals and the Ravens in terms of the betting, the over. The Steelers, 7.5. Is the AFC North that much of a toss-up that you really can't decide between the Bengals, Browns, and Ravens potentially?
I think it absolutely is, especially now. The caveat is obviously Watson. If he is suspended any amount of games, or especially the season, then the Browns win total is going to go down, probably closer to that Steeler range of 7.5 wins of the over/under. But absolutely it is. If Watson plays, he instantly upgrades this entire offense. They have Amari Cooper. They have the dynamic run game with Chubb and Hunt. One of the best, if not the best, offensive lines in football. The defense is stellar, as we talked about. But then, with the Ravens, you have Lamar Jackson. You have a bunch of guys coming back from injury last year, plus who they've added in the draft and free agency. The Bengals, they're coming off a Super Bowl run. Burrow and Jamar Chase aren't going to slow down, I don't think. T. Higgins is still going to be pretty good. They have a solid running game, not the greatest. Theirs is probably the weakest, actually, in the division. But absolutely those three. And the Steelers at 7.5, 2 games below what the others are ranked. That seems pretty accurate. It'll be hard for Mike Tomlin to get to 500 this year. I know they haven't been under 500 in his tenure, which is highly impressive. And they're always going to be tough no matter who is under center, who is, on defense or offense for them. But yeah, I think it's a huge toss-up this year, and it's especially going to be the case with Watson. And if he is playing for the 2022 season, all of it, then 9.5 should be exceeded. Should be 10 to 12. And here's my cat again. She loves when we talk to Deshaun Watson and Browns. So she loves this. She was literally not in the room until just we were just talking about this. So here she is. Say hello.
Yep. Likes our voices.
She loves as a cat. She loves the dog pound. But yeah, the AFC North is an absolute toss-up. Any one of those teams can win it, and they're going to beat each other up too because they each play each other twice. They're going to beat each other up. It's similar to the AFC West, only not as loaded in my opinion because there's a lot of talent in that division.
Eddie McDonald from Dog Pound Daily and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, 6 players who might be playing their last year in Cleveland. We'll also talk a little bit about Deshaun Watson. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, partners in education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Eddie McDonald from Dog Pound Daily. And Eddie, you wrote an article, 6 players that may not return in 2023. So Tommy Togiai, D tackle, Sione Takitaki, linebacker, Ronnie Harrison, safety, and then a couple of young guys, wide receiver Anthony Schwartz, DB Greedy Williams, and Kareem Hunt. Take us through that and kind of the thoughts behind that.
So I'm going to start with the biggest one there, Hunt. I don't know. I think he's going to be on the team this year. He could be traded within the summer months, just depending on what they decide to do, because they have a lot of talent in the running back room. And this is the last year of his deal, so I don't think he's coming back. So I think he will get paid, I think, starter money next year. I don't know where. I'm not going to predict that yet because a lot of things could happen from now and then. But I think this is his last year in Cleveland, if he hasn't already played his last snap in Cleveland. Tommy Togiai, we'll go to the bottom of the list now. Tommy Togiai, he's still a young guy, but last year he didn't do much of anything. He didn't really impress me much, but then again, he didn't get a whole lot of opportunity. So hopefully he does this year, because the defensive tackle position is one that is somewhat of a concern for the Browns. But at the same time, how many games did the defensive tackles blow for the Browns last year, or how many did they win for them? And you can't really answer that, because the answer is really none. So that didn't really hurt or help. I'm sure getting rushed up the middle a bunch hurt the Browns in some cases, but at the same time, not really. Ronnie Harrison, 1-year deal. He re-signed a 1-year deal with the team. Last year, he took a step back from one in 2020. In 2020, I thought he was great. For the most part, he did battle with some injuries, and then he did have some costly penalties. He had one last year in the start of the season against Kansas City when he pushed the coach, even though the coach touched him, and that's not allowed, but that is what it is. So he's on like a prove-it deal, and I don't know if it's a prove-it year for the Browns. It might just be a prove-it year for the NFL. Greedy Williams, he's an interesting one, because I would love to see him stay, and I would love to see him flourish alongside Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome for years to come. But he's one of those players, and I wrote in the article that with the elite quarterbacks, when teams have elite quarterbacks and they're paying them all this money, and the Browns are obviously paying Deshaun a lot of money for the next 5 years, then there's going to be middle of the roster guys that are just going to be not able to be retained. And that's just the nature of the beast of the NFL. That's what the draft is for. It's what free agency is for. You can find someone to fill in for them. Essentially, like I said, I'd love to see Greedy stay, but he's one that I can see teams interested in next year and not coming back to Cleveland.
Fair enough. All right, before we let you go, take a listen to Rich Eisen on the Deshaun Watson civil cases, given that we have found out what is in the 24th claimants as that was filed today. Here's Rich Eisen.
It's a he said, she said thing. If this is true, the Browns clearly did not do their due diligence. And I don't, once again, know this guy. I met him right after the draft. He couldn't have been more nice, couldn't have been more polite, couldn't have been more everything that you'd want in your child, everyone you'd want in your child's friend, anybody that you'd want in a face of your business. That's who Deshaun Watson was. As bright-eyed and as on the straight and narrow as you'd want anybody that you'd be giving all this money to. I don't know that person reading this document. Vile is the only way to describe it, if true. And I don't know the way out of this. And if it's true, then he should be on the commissioner's exempt list 5 minutes ago. Yeah, immediately. And I don't know the way out of this thing. But it's not criminal. He's not getting any criminal charges. It's all civil, and there's now 24 of them.
And Eddie, that's again an interesting point. That commissioner's exempt list can always be pulled right back up, and he can be pushed onto that until the NFL decides to do. And that's kind of like being in limbo. The one thing that, and again, Rich Eisen was reacting to reading the claimants, the 24th claimants, document that came out today. The court of public opinion is Deshaun Watson's not winning in it right now.
Absolutely not. He's not winning in it. And, he described Deshaun as nice and all these, nice things about him after meeting him after the draft, when he was drafted a few years ago. And, that sounds good. And from everything we've seen so far from Deshaun as he's been in Cleveland, that stands to be true. But there are 24 women who have civil cases against him. So if true, yes, vile is the perfect word for that. I don't know what's true and what's not true. Myles Garrett said something last week when he was asked about along the lines of, I wasn't there, you weren't there. We don't know what happened. Only Deshaun knows what happened, and the 24 women that are alleging this know what happened. So it's a slippery slope. I don't think that the Browns did not do their due diligence because clearly we knew that 22 charges were brought up on him by 22 different women. There was no criminal charges. That does not mean that he did not do this by any means. And I don't want people hearing me thinking that I'm defending him in any way. I'm just playing both sides of the field so we can get a proper discussion on this. I feel that it gets lost a lot of times. People see that and automatically it's innocent. It's not, or it's guilty. I mean, it's not innocent until proven guilty anymore because the public opinion process is just not what that is anymore. You're now innocent until proven guilty, or guilty until proven innocent, and that shouldn't be the case, but that is what it is. And in the NFL, a large portion of the percentage of the fines and the suspensions that come down anymore are based on public opinion, which is why I think they have that arbitrator, the independent arbitrator, which if that's the case, I don't understand how the public opinion would matter. I get from the NFL perspective, but if they have an independent arbitrator, I don't see how that's a thing. If he did this to any of these women, not just, it doesn't have to be half, doesn't have to be a majority. If he did it to any of the women, it's vile. I don't know what the Browns were thinking. If he did not do it, like he claims he did not do, then, they did their due diligence. And I think they did their due diligence. They're a bunch of smart Ivy League guys. I don't think they're just going to take a gamble like this without, knowing, hey, we trust that what he's saying is truthful. We'll deal with the repercussions of him being suspended if he is, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, and again, we have to wait for stuff to come out, but as it's going now, the public, and the NFL will, don't kid yourselves. There will be a factor of this that's based on the PR for the league. So I mean, it just is the way it is in the NFL or any league that's entertainment based, and that will factor into it.
And it should in some cases because I can't speak because I don't have children. But if I had a daughter, I'd probably feel 1,000% differently on this. I do have friends that have daughters, and I have younger cousins that I'd never want them to be in a position like this, and I would be irate if I ever found out that one was. But at the same time, I was not in Houston. I was not in any of those massage parlors or wherever any of this alleged incidents took place. I'm just going off what I know. Deshaun is claiming innocence, which, most people do when they do wrong. But I can't go against what he's saying based just off of, the cases and by no means am I saying that any woman is lying. I would never say that ever about any case like this. But it's not just black and white of believe them or don't believe them. Yep. I'm sure something happened. I don't know what that something is. I will never sit here and pretend I know what happened in any of those rooms. But at the same time, if he's fighting for his innocence and he somehow gets cleared of all this, then how does that make the league look if they, let's say they give him 8 games or a year, and then it's like, oh, well, nothing happened. Like I said, I don't know what happened. And if nothing comes of this, then that's a hard thing. This is a slippery slope. It's a unique case. So the decision-making process is going to be difficult for the NFL because, some people are going to feel it's too harsh because he hasn't been charged criminally, and some people are going to feel it's not enough, no matter what the punishment is.
Yep, have to let it play out. Eddie McDonald, as always, man. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Eddie.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Read Dog Pound Daily, everybody.
All right, Eddie McDonald from Dog Pound Daily. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. See you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guests, Mary Kay Cabot, Casey Kinnaman. That's tomorrow at 4. Have a great night, everybody.